Welcome once again, my fellow manipulators of digital fate. I'm Richie, this is Capricorn, and today we were surprised with some new leaked spoilers for Magic the Gathering's Edge of Eternity's expansion. We just got the first official spoilers at MagicCon Vegas. That video just went up not too long ago, so if you haven't seen those, I'm going to make sure and link it in the description and in the comments. Definitely check out those spoilers. But I was surprised that we already got leaks. It seems like someone got their hands on some cards, and they're cracking boxes, and they're showing off some of it, but they're being a little coy about it. So there's only a few cards that we can see in their entirety. We're going to take a look at those cards in particular first, and then we're going to take a more detailed look at just the overall picture of all the cards that were kind of displayed in the leak, and see if we can garner a couple other tidbits about the set. So we're going to start here by diving right into the very first spoiler. Before we do, please like the video. It helps me get it out to more people and helps the channel grow. I would appreciate it more than I can possibly express with words. Also, be sure to subscribe if you're new, because more spoiler content is on the way. We're going to stay on top of the leaks like immediately as they drop. So if you want to see everything before everyone else, definitely subscribe, because I am going to put a lot of pressure on myself to keep up with all of it. Pretty excited about this set. So, with all of that down, catch me live Monday through Friday over on Twitch. That's twitch.tv/QuarantineCapricorn. Because if I'm alive and I'm breathing, I'm there and I'm streaming. But let's check out these spoilers. First of all, we have 𝐵𝑒𝑜𝑚ECHAN Engineer, a 2/2 creature insect artificer for 2 mana in the colors of Simic. And when this creature enters, you create a lander token, which is a brand new mechanic coming to this set. We now have confirmation of what this mechanic is. It's pretty obvious that this is going to be a mechanic that you can build archetypes around in Limited, and there are going to be plenty of cards that have this mechanic built into them, so I'm really excited to see where this goes. But what it does is, when this creature enters, create a lander token. A lander token is an artifact with pay 2 mana, tap it, and sacrifice the token to search your library for a basic land card, put it onto the battlefield tapped, and then shuffle. So it's kind of like just the next token in a long line of tokens. You know, we got blood tokens, we got map tokens, we got treasure tokens, all sorts of tokens. It seems like every set they seem to find a new token they can introduce, and this is just the newest one. But being able to ramp out land and fix your mana by finding whatever basics you want is super interesting. It leads me to believe that going 4 or 5 color potentially in Limited in this set is probably going to be pretty easy to pull off, which then again lets me think, like, how crazy is this set going to be color-wise? Are we going to see like 4 color cards prominently? Are we going to see like the potential for like 5 color good stuff in Limited? Maybe I'm getting ahead of myself. Maybe this mechanic is not that prominent, or maybe it slows down tempo too much, and you know, it's not going to be as crazy as I think. But just seeing this baked into like commons and uncommons as a core mechanic within the set is really, really intriguing, and it makes me wonder that about like the rares and the mythics that have this kind of mechanic built in, and how crazy they might be for ramp decks and domain decks and that sort of thing. But what's crazy about this card in particular, not only is it a 2/2 body that gives you that lander token, but it has this crazy late game ability as well, where you can spend 8 mana to draw 2 cards and create a 2/2 colorless robot artifact creature token. And it's not an exhaust ability. We've seen abilities similar to this that are expensive and whatnot. In the Aether Drift expansion, they were exhaust. You could only use it once per game. But this is just every 8 mana you spend does that. So in Limited, this thing is insane. It gives you an automatic body that is comparable and can usually trade with like your opponent's 3/2s for 2. Also gives you the lander token to fix, to ramp, or to just have an artifact token for things that care about artifacts. And then it goes even crazier by giving you this ridiculous late game value engine. You can literally just pay 8 mana every turn, keep spitting out a 2/2, keep drawing 2 more cards. It is expensive, it might slow you down tempo wise, but if you get to that grindy point of a Limited match where you and your opponent are just out of gas and trying to do whatever you can, being able to refill every turn and make a 2/2 to boot is pretty good. And the 2/2 comes in on tap, so I think this guy's absolutely nuts for Limited. I think he even maybe has potential to see Standard play, although Standard is so pushed it feels like a Pioneer at home in a way. It feels like a poor man's Pioneer, and the power level's so insane. So in a normal standard with the normal power of a standard environment before they went to 3-year rotation and 6 standard sets a year, I feel like this could have been a really good standard card, but in standard the way it is now, I'm not so sure. The next card is Close Encounter, an instant for 1 green and 1. As an additional cost to cast it, you choose a creature you control or a warped creature that you own in exile, which is kind of interesting. We'll get back to that. And then Close Encounter deals damage equal to the power of the chosen creature or card to target creature. The first thing I want to point out is this is a bite spell, and it says chosen creature or card. So when I first read it, it made me think, oh man, maybe you can have warped vehicles in exile and choose to deal damage equal to the power of the vehicle. But then when I reread it, it was like, no, a creature you control or a warped creature card. So that warped card in exile has to be an actual creature. It can't be a vehicle or a spacecraft or anything like that, which is kind of a bummer because I think this could have had some extra utility if it could target like that. But even then, still just getting a decent instant speed bite spell here that you can use even if you don't have a creature in play is kind of cool. And that leads me to the most curious part about this card, which is what the hell is warped? It seems like it's something, a state that a card exists while it's in exile where you can interact with that card in exile, which is really interesting. I feel like flavorfully, they're probably going for some sort of teleportation mechanic, like a beam me up Scotty sort of teleport, which is also kind of interesting, but it's a card that exists in exile that you can interact with, which I think is just really, really cool. And I hope we see a lot more cards that can interact with warped cards in exile. Is it a mechanic where we're playing things from exile? Is it a mechanic where sometimes things go to warped after they fulfill a certain condition, and we can continue to get a little bit of extra value out of those cards for the rest of the game from their warped exile state? Can a creature be warped without being in exile? Because this one specifically states a warped creature in exile, but if that warped creature can maybe be replayed and comes into play, does it still count as warped, but now it's not in exile? There are a lot of questions, and I think it's going to be really interesting to see how this mechanic actually works once we see the rest of the set spoiled. But if you have ideas about what this mechanic could be or how it could work, definitely let me know in the comments, because I think it's pretty interesting. We're going to move on to the last card that we can fully make out from the spoilers before we move on to the actual full photo of all of the cards. And that's Uthros Scanship, a 4/4 artifact spacecraft for 1 blue and 3. When it enters, you draw 2 cards, then discard a card. So even though it's a spacecraft and it's going to take a little time to turn it on, you immediately get this value where you get card advantage by getting to keep one of the cards, only having to discard 1, and also card selection by digging 2 cards into your deck, and also just having an artifact on the battlefield. This thing can trigger Simulacrum Synthesizer. It can go wide as another artifact to care, you know, for cards that care about having as many artifacts on the battlefield as possible. Maybe something gets a buff for each artifact you have out, and it's going to contribute to that. All of that is kind of pretty good gravy when you consider the fact that it only needs to get to 8 charge counters to turn into a creature, and it becomes a 4/4 flyer that still only ever costs you that 4 mana. And for those of you who haven't seen the initial spoiled cards yet, the way that these spacecraft work, this station ability, is tap another creature you control, and then you put charge counters on this equal to the power of that creature that you tapped. And then when you get to a certain number of charge counters, it just becomes a creature forever. So it's kind of like a crew cost that's really high, except once it's finally crewed for the first time, you never have to crew it again. But it's actually a little bit better than that, because you can split up the station activations, the charge counters you're putting on, between multiple turns, right? You could tap a 4-power creature to put 4 charge counters on this, say go, and then on your next turn, untap and tap that same 4-power creature to put the rest of the 4 on. You're up to 8, you fulfill that 8+ condition, and now this is a 4/4 flyer. So there is more versatility to it, rather than just like, oh, it's a huge crew cost that once you do it once, you never have to crew again. It is that, but it's also a crew cost that's huge that you can split up between multiple turns and potentially use the same creature over and over to finally get there, which is pretty cool. I like the way they're going with this mechanic. I'm not entirely sure how good it's going to be until we see the entire set spoiled. But at the very least, this is sort of a hint that they're trying to get back to more of a mid-range feel for standard Magic the Gathering, which I'm excited about because aggro's just running roughshod over everything right now, and if we can make, you know, mid-range really be something competitive moving forward, which it seems like this station ability wants to do, that would be really interesting to me. But that's the last fully visible card that we saw spoiled. We still have some tidbits to garner, so let's take a look at the full picture of everything that was ripped from this box that somebody got early. Alright, so here we have the full picture of all of the cards that were kind of leaked and teased, and we're zoomed in here so that we can check them out. We have a Close Encounter that's covered up at the top. We already saw that card. We've got Virulent Silencer, a 3-mana artifact creature robot assassin. Whenever a non-token artifact creature you control deals combat damage to a player, that player gets 2 poison counters. So they're introducing poison as a mechanic in the set on an uncommon that specifically ties to artifact creatures with Virulent Silencer. That makes me think that we're going to have a bunch more poison support, but also that there might be this kind of new twist on it that is specifically having to do with artifact creatures. Maybe most of things that can give poison counters are already artifact creatures, and this just kind of doubles down on that sort of archetype. We can't see the power or toughness. We can't see if there's any more abilities, although there is another shot of this card later that we'll look at. Moving beyond that, we see Dual Sun Technique here. 1 white and 1. I'm going to assume this is an instant or sorcery. It says has here. So I'm almost thinking like each creature that you control has double strike or has something. It's definitely going to have something to do with the double sort of theme going on in the art and in the name. So my guess is probably double strike, but 2 mana for an instant that gives double strike seems nuts. Maybe it's a sorcery. I don't think it would give all of your creatures double strike. It also could be an enchantment. I don't think it's an enchantment. I'm pretty sure they strictly went to having the enchantment border on all enchantments moving forward. So I don't think it's that. My best guess is that it's an instant or a sorcery. And if it is double strike, it's probably a sorcery. But with the has being at the very end of the text box, we need enough words there to take up that space. So it's definitely not target creature has double strike. It's got to be more than that. It could be each creature that you control has something. And it also looks like it's only that one line of text, because we can see right below that you finish that first ability, there's a period, and then there's a cutoff for the flavor text pretty high up. So interesting to see what that actually is. We also see a red card that's 1 red and 2, a blue card that's 1 blue and who knows, maybe just 1 blue. We see a green card that's got multiple green in the cost and looks like is a 5/7 down here. We see a black card, but we can't make out much of it. We see another red card here that's 1 red and 2, does something with an artifact and deals damage, but it's a creature. It's got 3 toughness. So whenever you play an artifact, this creature deals damage, maybe something like that. Or whenever your opponent plays an artifact, this creature deals a certain amount of damage to something. It'll be interesting to see what that card actually is. We got a blue card here as well. 1 blue and 1. Pretty cheap. Not a creature. Doesn't have power and toughness. Has the word it's in it. That's all we know. Moving fully down more here, we see something that does something with enchantments and looks like it looks like it's a lander token. The templating for the wording seems to be similar. I think we see another look at this card later as well. But moving on, we see the Biomechan Engineer, which we already talked about. Above that is a Caesarean Void something. Void Borer? Void Bolt? Void Bot? Caesarean Void Bot, maybe? Creature something or other robot that's black? That might be it. Caesarean Void Bot. Whenever something or something creature or something, 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 opponent, something, something, something. And we have a warp ability here, warp for 1 black. So it looks like warp might be an alternate cost you can pay, where instead of putting the creature into play, you put it into exile, but can then be interacted with in exile, which is really interesting. It seems like it's almost like a foretell maybe, or something like that, a plot, similar to those mechanics, except it's more interactable. Hand for its, yeah, so put this into exile from your hand for its warp cost, probably. And then at the beginning of something, something happens and you may cast it. So, maybe it's like some sort of like plot meets suspend or something like that. But we know we can interact with cards that are in warp, which is also really interesting. I think it's some sort of a suspended cast that costs you less mana to do, but then it takes longer for it to come into play. That would be my guess. Let's move on here. We see a 5/6 spacecraft with the station ability. 10 plus, it becomes a flying 5/6. It is an artifact. We don't know very much more about that. When something, 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 creature, something, something, graveyard. This actually might be the other card we're going to take a closer look at in the other photo. We also see an insect druid here. It's a 2/3. We don't know its cost, but it has a landfall ability. Whenever a land you control enters, you gain a life. So again, even more hints that lands are going to be hugely impactful, not only in this set, in Limited, but also just probably in Standard moving forward, which is pretty cool. And then the last card here, we can't really make out too much. We know it does some form of damage to your opponents, it looks like. And then all artifacts with mana value 3 or. So it looks like maybe it's a new take on like Brotherhood's End, where you have one of two modes. You either like destroy all artifacts with mana value 3 or less, or 3 or more, or you do this other ability where you're maybe doing damage to opponents. It'll be interesting to finally see what that card is when they officially spoil all this stuff. But let's move on to the other photo we have. And here we have 2 more close-ups at the cards we already looked at the beginning of this video. But as we scroll down, we get other looks at some other stuff here. So, first of all, Virulent Silencer in the middle there. We can see that poison counter ability is the only ability on the card. And below that is just flavor text. Infectant, category 5 substance, capable of infecting both organics and blah blah blah, weaponizing it as a war crime. Interesting. So it looks like the poison thematically in this set is some sort of toxin that was bioengineered by some sort of race. Seems pretty cool. It also looks like it's probably a 2/3. I think the toughness is definitely 3. The power, not 100% sure, but it looks like 2. And then off to the left, we see that same card we saw earlier. That seems to be some kind of enchantment interaction. And now we can see a little bit more of it, that it's artifact or enchantment. Something was 2 or less, create a lander token. So it looks like, I can't really see the cost very well, but it looks like this is an instant or sorcery that destroys an artifact or enchantment, and if that artifact or enchantment costs 2 or less, you also create a lander token, which, honestly, pretty cool. You could maybe even use this in your own, against your own artifacts or enchantments, just to create lander tokens. You wouldn't build around that and construct it or anything like that, but it could be an interesting pivot if you're desperate in like Limited. And this last card here is, I'm pretty sure, that same vehicle that we saw in the other photo down here. That's a 5/6. It's 10 plus and has flying here. It starts with a when and has station. So it's a 5/6. And I'm almost positive. It looks like it's exactly that. We just can't see the power and toughness in this picture. So it looks like it is a 5/6 for 1 white and 5. 10 plus station, 10 plus charge counters from stationing. It turns into that 5/6 flyer. But when it enters, you return target creature or enchantment card from your graveyard to the battlefield. So honestly, kind of good. A little expensive, but 6 mana, you get back a thing right away, and that thing could be used to station this. So it's sort of like a reanimation spell that's overcosted, but that's because it also comes attached to a creature that you could potentially just reanimate something with 10 power with this, and then immediately tap the thing with 10 power to turn this into a flying 5/6, which I think is kind of interesting. I still think it's a little overcosted. It's probably meant to be some sort of top end in limited specifically, but I wouldn't completely count this out, you know, of being useful in in constructed like standard or whatnot. Maybe you could use this with some kind of maybe they have like a Grease Fang that's for Spacecraft. You know, maybe they have things that work really well with this, where you pull this guy out of the graveyard, and then this guy entering pulls another guy out of the graveyard, and then that guy taps to completely station this guy and turn him into a 5/6, and then you just have a free flying 5/6 on the battlefield in addition to whatever the thing is that you would have just pulled out to begin with. So it's just pure extra value at that point. I do feel like there are ways in which this card could be nuts in standard if it has the right cards to go alongside it, but at the very least it's going to be a lot of value in limited, right? It's going to be a win condition in and of itself, and bring your best creature or enchantment back from the graveyard as well. Just really, really good late game value in limited. But that's pretty much gonna do it for this video, guys. Thanks so much for checking it out. If there are more leaks, I'll make sure to keep you guys up to date on all of the leaked cards. There was also one more official card spoiled and uncommon that we haven't talked about yet, and I might make a video with that, or I might wait until we get a couple more cards spoiled before I go over it. But either way, I'm definitely going to make a short for that card and put it up as a spoiler short so that you guys can check it out. And some of the cards that we talked about here today will go up as spoiler shorts as well. Just really interested to see where this set goes and how crazy it ends up being once it's fully spoiled. But that's going to do it for today. Please like the video, please subscribe, and I'll see you on the next one. I'd like to thank the sponsor of today's video, Wonders of the First. Wonders of the First is a brand new collectible card game similar to games like Magic the Gathering, Yu-Gi-Oh! And Pokemon, featuring a unique action-based resource economy that helps avoid pitfalls like Mana Flood or Mana Screw, and a battlefield containing multiple realms that unlock over time as you fight for control of the stones. The first 400 card set is called Existence, and they've even partnered with Star City Games to host their competitive play tour at every single SCG-Con event starting in August. The game contains alternate borderless art variants, as well as highly sought-after limited edition numbered prints, culminating in a one-of-one stone foil. And the best part is that the developers have a community-first approach, with a card database and deck builder available via Cardio, as well as a version of the game available on Tabletop Simulator, all for free. For more information, be sure to check out wondersccg.com today. That's wondersccg.com. Thanks so much for checking out my channel. I'd like to give a huge shout out to all of my patrons over at Patreon. Without you guys, this channel would not be possible, so honestly, thank you from the bottom of my heart for all of your contributions. If you haven't yet, like and subscribe. The more likes we get and the quicker we get them, the bigger this channel will grow and the faster it will grow. I'd love nothing more than this channel to become something very special for you guys, but it's entirely up to you how fast that happens. Also, if you'd like more deck text, that's somewhere over there. And if you'd like to see what else the channel's been up to lately, that's somewhere up that way. Also, subscribe, circle below, do all the things.